Thanks for being here on Bloomberg TV and radio, Congressman.
Well, thanks for having me on.
Appreciate it.
And thanks for the lead-in. One after another of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle forgetting about everyone from Truman through Biden. Every one of them did a kinetic firing. None of them went to war. None of them came to Congress for the constitutional approval. And that's the only thing the Constitution says is going to war. The fact is, since Teddy Roosevelt famously said that you can, I'll send the Great White Fleet anywhere I want and you can pay to get them back, presidents have been very open about being the commander-in-chief and taking action, not in waiting for approval of Congress, not even necessarily consulting Congress, but informing Congress. And we were all very informed 60 days ago and a few days ago that this was likely to happen.
The entirety of the Gang of Eight was not read in before this strike happened.
But again, the traditions of whether or not you do something, whether that's a peril, I have to be honest. I've always had a concern that in something where so many of our brave men and women are going in harm's way, 125 aircraft, countless ships, any kind of a botch, and we'd end up with what Jimmy Carter ended up in the desert with, a disaster. The fact is this was pulled off perfectly, partially because of deception. Not a deception that it was going to likely happen, but a deception about exactly where and when. And I think the president did the right thing. And for those members who didn't say a word when President Clinton, through President Biden, Democrat after Democrat, launched against Libya, against Syria, the list is...
the matter of notification is something real, though, right? When Jim Himes says, the ranking member of the Intel Committee, he found out about it on social media.
I'm glad he's on social media.
Well, I guess he is. He found out about it when President Trump posted it like the rest of us. Is this the new normal for the sake of secrecy?
Look, I think it is a little bit of the new normal. When we got Osama bin Laden, we found out about it. You were probably in the audience when the president, was up there and they were taking him out. Look, there are things that are done with a recognition that they're likely to happen, but not the exact time and place and manner. But every part of this mission, the very successful mission the president did to once and for all make it clear we're not going to tolerate a nuclear Iran. And let's be honest, this is not about the 2 weeks that Bibi Netanyahu talks about all the time. When they passed 20% and went to 60% enrichment, they enriched uranium to a level that is useful for nothing but nuclear weapons. At that point, they were so far out of compliance with any claim that they weren't preparing to weaponize. And again, the president has made it clear he's holding out an olive branch every day, including today, but he's also made it clear he will not tolerate the continued behavior that has cost so many American lives all the way back to the early 1980s when the Iranian regime was young. They have been killing Americans.
I would note, Congressman, while we did hear from a number of Democrats, there is also one of your Republican colleagues, Thomas Massie, who has said that this was unconstitutional. He's pushing a war powers resolution he would like to see have a vote. If the olive branch does not work and the U.S. has to take continued military action, is that worth a vote? Should Congress get involved at that point?
I served with Ron Paul, the original Dr. No. I served on Judiciary and the full committee, the full Congress, with Thomas Massie. He's a wonderful libertarian with a wonderful interpretation. But just so you understand, the same Thomas Massie who absolutely says we have to do this in the Constitution would say that books, if they include statements about the law, can't be copyrighted. You can have a purist opinion, but history says that all the way back through Truman, before the War Powers Act and since, president after president, to keep America safe, have acted without specific notice to Congress until after the fact.
If we, in fact, had a protracted conflict with Iran, though, I presume would sign off on a war powers agreement.
Absolutely. If we're going to put ground troops there, which I do not advise, look, Iraq was in a war with Iran for 8 years. There's 91 million people in Iran, most of whom are innocent victims of their own unelected regime. So when it's all said and done, we need to do for the Iranians what we can do, which is diminish the ability of that nation to export terrorism, encourage them to spend that vast oil money on their own people, and empower them to make regime change if they choose to, not us. If there's going to be regime change, President Trump has made it clear, if there's going to be regime change, it's going to be not at the hands of the United States, but at the hands of Iranians who have had enough of their now weakened regime that has been in power for 47 years. That's the reality. And it's not going to be Iranians living outside Iran, and it's not going to be Americans. It's going to be Iranian people who have risen up again and again, only to be stabbed in the streets, imprisoned in vast amounts. You know, let there be no doubt, this is a regime that has captured and killed their own people for 46, 47 years. This is a regime that has led to deaths of Americans and others around the globe. And I happen to be of Lebanese ancestry, and I can tell you, I have been going to that region for 30 plus years. They have created a situation in which one of the most beautiful places on the planet, a place in which Christians, Jews, and Muslims live together, and many other sects since the beginning of time, they do not, because they're captured by Hezbollah, funded by Iran. So when I'm passionate about the need to support Israel, I'm supporting Israel because they're our ally, but I'm also supporting the fact that Iran, since the time I was a second lieutenant, or first lieutenant, I guess, in 1979, they have been the nemesis of president after president, and they have led to a cost to the world, the cost of freedom and progress, not just in Iran. So passionate about it, yes. Happy about what's happened? No, you're never happy that this was necessary. President Trump did everything he could to avoid it. Let's face it, he went through his first 4 years trying to avoid it, and he went into this administration trying to avoid it. But the difference now is Iran has to make a decision. They're no longer in the nuclear business. Are they going to try to go back to the rocket and missile business? Are they going to try to close down the straits? I got to tell you, when they did it in 1987, Reagan responded by sinking their fleet. And I have no doubt that this president who wants peace is not going to tolerate the international order being disrupted by these people.
And Congressman, finally, how much will China and Russia, and whether or not they decide to lend a helping hand to Iran, dictate how things move forward?
China and Russia have been opportunist in this, but I don't think they want to go directly against the United States. It's not in their interest. The fact is, China and Russia, particularly China needs the rest of the Gulf countries to not be their enemy. China needs to not be a nemesis, and China has their own problems. So when it's convenient, have they bought oil at a discount? Absolutely. Would they like to continue? Yes. And by the way, if there's a change in the regime of any sort, I'm sure they'll still be selling to the Chinese. They're good customers. But the weapons that have come out of Iran, much of it with Chinese help, that have been in Russia killing Ukrainians, that's going to stop because of this diminishment, and that's a good thing for the rest of the world.